Hey, it's Mark Linear with your video thought for the day on Smell Week. Now, we've been talking about passages in the Bible that deal with smell. And most of these passages have dealt with good smells and fragrances. In fact, the one tomorrow I'm already excited about because it's got a story of high school in it. And many of us love to talk about those days. But today's today. And today's a flip-flop from all of these good smelling stories. Today we've got a passage that speaks of something that's stinky. The passage comes out of the writings of the Apostle Paul. He wrote to a church in Philippi, a letter we call Philippians. And in that letter, in chapter 3, verse 8, Paul said something that is rather profound. He said, I consider everything as a loss because of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage that I may gain Christ. Now, backdrop to the story. Paul was quite the bon vivant in his life. He had graduated from a law school of sorts, studied under the sage Gamaliel, had been the star pupil for Gamaliel. Paul worked as a prosecutor for the high court of Israel. He worked for the Sanhedrin, prosecuting people for ungodliness. Paul clearly came from a family of money and wealth, and yet Paul, in the middle of prosecuting Jews for believing that Jesus was a resurrected Messiah, Paul encounters Jesus on the road to Damascus. And it is a 180 because he realizes that this Jesus he's been persecuting is truly a resurrected Messiah. And so Paul tries to grapple with all of that. But in the process, Paul lost his position. He lost his job. He lost his prestige. He lost so much. He lost the stake to his money. I'm sure his family relations were strained. He gets a calling from God to go on the road, not a safe thing to happen even back then, and winds up getting shipwrecked. He gets beaten. He gets, tons of things happen to him. But that's okay because he's serving the Lord. And then he writes this, and he uses this Greek word skubala, which is translated garbage. I considered it garbage, but it actually means anything that's stinky. It's even used for dung. And so any foul smelling refuse is what he's saying here. And what Paul has proclaimed so boldly is that following a worldly pursuit instead of following God is not smart. The worldly pursuits are dung. They stink compared to following the path that God has for you. Knowing God, knowing who he is and what he's done and his care for you, and walking in his service, that is more valuable than all of earth's treasures. And so I want to urge you today, I want to urge me today, let's make today a day of pursuing God. Not just living and trying to be godly. Let's pursue God. Think about how to do that. Through prayer, through service, through the way you treat others. Because as we do that, we'll invest in something that's not stinky, but something that's beautiful. So I've made it your video thought for today.